Weekend Recharge. What you need to know right now, who really needs to start preparing this weekend and how soon is expected, Maria. And Dr. Navarro, we also have the remnants of Gordon playing a big role in a dangerous situation, evolving from the Midwest to the Northeast. 33 million people under flash flood watches that stretch for nearly 1,000 miles across 7 states. Wait until you see who could get half a foot of rain or even more than that. And it may not be the rain, but the heat in play for today's college football matchup in the South and the SEC. Our Paul Goodlow is live in Columbia, South Carolina.
Hey there, Maria. Definitely heat, a big issue for this week, but also the moisture from Gordon impacting football games in the Ohio Valley. We're talking everything football and weather on a new segment, 100 Yards of Weather, coming up right now on Weekend Recharge.
Come on, commercials, let's go. Gonna do live coverage of football weather. Then they'll do Hurricane Francis.
Welcome back to Weekend Recharge. I'm meteorologist Paul Goodlow with my partner Maria LaRosa back in the studio up here in Columbia, South Carolina. You might hear the band. That's the University of South Carolina marching band here. We're with our friends here, the SEC Nation Network here. Partnership with them talking about football and weather.
Sorry, trying to even this out.
Matchup going on today here in South Carolina this afternoon. 3:30 kickoff for number 3 Georgia Bulldogs and the number 24 South Carolina Gamecocks. Could be a scorcher on the field. Well, we're definitely watching weather for this week. A lot of eyes looking towards next week. We could be dealing with Hurricane Florence impacting not only the southeast, but even much of the eastern half of the U.S. that definitely have an impact on college games for next week. But Maria has more on what's going on right now across the country. Maria?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. We're going to check in with you in just a little bit, but that confidence is growing that Florence will threaten the East Coast, so we're going to talk about that. But as we get you ready for your Saturday with the Saturday Snapshot, a lot of tropical moisture. This related to Gordon. So lots of downpours from Texas to the Ohio Valley, eventually pushing into the Northeast. You do see the red zones, the threat for severe weather. So we're going to time that out as well. But boy, you have a lit up tropics from the Pacific all the way into the Atlantic. So we'll touch on all of those systems, but we want to get you up to date on the latest, what we know right now related to Florence. Orders have been issued for all U.S. Navy ships to the Hampton Roads area to set sortie condition Charlie, which means that the Norfolk-based ships will be leaving port in advance of Florence's arrival. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper has declared a state of emergency ahead of any possible effects from the storm. And emergency management officials in Charleston County, South Carolina, have started to prepare for potential activation. So as we take a look at the setup for Florence, it is still, as of the latest advisory, a tropical storm. 11 a.m. has it at 65-mile-per-hour winds, moving to the west at 7 miles per hour. And you can see a little bit of flare-up of the showers and the thunderstorms near the center of the storm. The latest track continuing its westward push, perhaps hurricane as early as tonight, major hurricane as early as Monday into Tuesday, with a major hurricane off the southeast coast now in that red cone. Now, FEMA Director Brock Long reacting to the tropics being in overdrive, saying, quote, "I can't recall a time when so many storms have threatened the U.S. in such a short time frame." Between Olivia and Florence and several other storms in both Atlantic and Pacific, we all must do everything we can to be ready. Follow @ReadyGov and hashtag prepare now. And that's exactly what we want to do. Dr. Erica Navarro, prepare everyone. What's the latest of what you're looking at?
Yeah, Maria, still watching very closely the transition of Florence. It's really made a dramatic change over the last 6 hours, going from a sheared tropical cyclone to potentially here a strengthening tropical cyclone. Now, the forecast track here, or I should say the Hurricane Center with the latest advisory, pretty similar in terms of the track and intensity here, but you can see this is a very serious situation that we are potentially facing along the U.S. East Coast, because Thursday morning we are still forecasting here a major hurricane to be coming towards the U.S. This is definitely that you need to be planning for now, because you cannot wait until next Tuesday to start putting a plan in place. Have something prepared today in case you need to act on it next week. That is the best thing that you can do right now, given what we're facing in the forecast. Here's a look at what Florence is doing on the satellite imagery right now. You can see down to the ocean surface on the eastern side, that's dry air that's worked its way into the system. But if you look near the core of that storm, notice those thunderstorms that are really starting to bubble up. That is very clear that this storm is going to be fighting off this dry air, and it's likely on its way to its potential intensification here, likely to continue intensifying through the next 3, 4, potentially 5 days. So now, one of the big hangups with this forecast, or I should say one of the biggest uncertainties that we're facing, is the track. It's too soon to tell where exactly that storm is going to go, but we know that strong high pressure is going to dictate where that storm ultimately goes. If it stays strong, that clockwise flow around that high is going to steer Florence off to the west. If it weakens slightly here, which some models are calling for it to do, that will steer that storm a little bit farther to the north and potentially bring stronger, even direct impacts up towards the mid-Atlantic, and maybe even towards the northeast. This is absolutely something everyone along the East Coast, from, I would say, Maine down to Florida at this point, needs to be watching. And it's not just coastal areas. Inland areas and inland flooding from tropical cyclones is also a very serious threat. So now here's the deal with the intensity. As that storm moves off to the west here, notice those ocean temperatures are quite warm. There's a lot of red there. That's mid to upper 80s, very high ocean temperatures here, enough to really meet that threshold for tropical development. That is enough to really maintain and strengthen a tropical storm. In addition to that, we're forecasting the wind shear, that factor that really inhibits development. We're forecasting that wind shear to come down. So when you combine those two together, that's a very favorable environment for tropical cyclone intensification. That's why we're calling for this gradual, even rapid intensification of the storm into the early part of next week. So by Monday and Tuesday, even Wednesday, we're calling for a potential major hurricane here off the East Coast. It could be Category 3, but again, we could even have some fluctuation in that forecast. We could see it stronger or weaker. It all remains to be seen how things come together. So here's the bottom line. U.S. impacts are possible, if not likely at this point, by the middle to late part of next week. The storm is going to be tracking westward over the next couple of days, but that exact track, the where, the when, the who and the what, that remains uncertain at this time. It is forecast to rapidly strengthen in the next 24 to 48 hours. So by tonight, we could be looking at, once again, Hurricane Florence, and maybe by Monday, major Hurricane Florence at that point. And I just want to note how rare it is to see a tropical cyclone take the track that Florence has taken. These are all the paths that storms have taken through this bubble here where Florence is currently located. This is the track of Florence off towards the east coast of the U.S. Notice that there are not any, or I would say maybe one green line here that crosses into that forecast track. We have not seen a storm take this track here in our history. So this storm, again, will be rare and will make history at that point. So this, Maria, is something that we have to watch very carefully. Yes, it's unique and it's rare, but the point is that we have major hurricane impacts potentially on the East Coast. That's what we need to focus on.
And we know emergency managers are already paying attention and starting to make some of those calls. So now it's time for the public to listen and think about your plan right now while we have the luxury of time. As Dr. Navarro mentioned, there's always the aspect of inland flooding. And unfortunately, we have flooding related to a different tropical system, all that Gordon moisture, but from all of the rain events that we've had already this summer. I mean, look at the year to date, anywhere from
All right, guys, we're going to call it quits. I'll pick up the next update here around 4. God bless. Be safe. Thank you for watching.
In that darker green, that makes sense. Places like Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. down to Richmond.